What if every tiny piece of the universe contains, in some encoded way, the whole? And an ancient Buddhist image called Indras net was pointing at the same idea long before modern physics named it. Welcome to Beyond the Mind. Today we'll explore a bold idea where physics and contemplative metaphor meet, the holographic principle in quantum gravity and the jewel net of Indra's net. We'll trace how black holes forced physicists to rethink information and space, how a precise mathematical duality called AD/CFT made holography concrete, and why some researchers now think spacetime itself might emerge from patterns of quantum information. We'll also step into the old image of Indra's net, a web of jewels in which each jewel reflects every other, and ask what it can responsibly teach us about interconnection and ethical attention. Toward the end, I'll guide you through a short interconnection contemplation you can use as a practical micro-practice. If you want the technical sources and suggested reading, check the description for a list of verifiable papers and books. First, what does holographic mean in physics? It's not a poetic way of saying the universe is an illusion. In physics, holographic refers to a precise, surprising relationship between descriptions of a system with different dimensionalities. The concrete puzzle that pushed scientists in this direction came from black hole thermodynamics. In the 1970s, Jacob Bekenstein proposed that the entropy of a black hole, a measure of the number of microscopic states consistent with its macroscopic description, scales with the area of its event horizon, not with the volume inside. Stephen Hawking later showed that black holes radiate, and that radiation made the thermodynamic picture inevitable. The unsettling implication was that the amount of information that can fit inside a spatial region seems to be proportional to the area of its boundary. That runs counter to naive expectation, where capacity grows with volume. This area scaling hinted at a deep limit on how information and geometry relate. Gerard T. Hooft and Leonard Susskind expanded this intuition into the holographic principle. Under certain conditions, the physics within a volume can be fully described by degrees of freedom living on the boundary surface. Think of a two-dimensional hologram that encodes a three-dimensional image. In some theories of quantum gravity, the information about the bulk, everything inside, is encoded on a lower-dimensional boundary. This is not a mere metaphor in modern theoretical physics. In specific mathematical frameworks, the equivalence can be exact and calculable. The best-known concrete example is AD/CFT, discovered by Maldacena in 1997. In AD/CFT, a quantum gravity theory in a curved spacetime called anti-de Sitter space, shorthand ADS, is rigorously dual to a conformal field theory, CFT, living on that space's boundary. The two theories are mathematically equivalent. What looks like gravity and geometry in the bulk maps to field-theoretic processes on the boundary. This duality turned a philosophical intuition into a computational toolkit. Problems in quantum gravity that are intractable in the bulk can sometimes be translated into easier calculations on the boundary, and vice versa. Important caveat: our observable universe is not an exact AD space. So AD/CFT is a model, a powerful laboratory for ideas, not an immediate cosmological claim. Translating the lessons from AD/CFT into a full theory of our universe is an active research frontier. Still, the correspondence gives physicists concrete examples where space-time and gravity are emergent from deeper, non-gravitational degrees of freedom. Why did black holes force this rethink? A quick way to see it: entropy counts microstates. For normal matter, entropy roughly scales with volume. For black holes, entropy scales with horizon area. If you try to cram more information into a fixed region, at some point gravity will win and form a black hole, and the black hole's information capacity is set by its surface. That suggests information is fundamentally tied to surfaces in a way we didn't expect. These discoveries raised questions about whether information is lost when black holes evaporate and, if not, how information is preserved and retrieved. Over decades, many theorists using holographic tools have argued that information is not destroyed, and recent advances tie black hole behavior to entanglement structure and ideas borrowed from quantum information theory, even quantum error-correcting codes. One of the freshest, most intriguing ideas to come out of this work is that quantum entanglement may build geometry in several holographic models. The entanglement pattern of the boundary theory maps onto geometric connectivity in the bulk. Researchers have shown that changing entanglement can change geometric features. In extreme cases, entanglement appears tied to wormhole-like connections. Some suggest that spacetime itself, its continuity, its connectivity, is an emergent phenomenon arising from the network of entanglement among underlying quantum degrees of freedom. That is a radical but mathematically supported notion. Geometry from information. Now shift frames to an image from ancient Mahayana Buddhism, Indra's net. Picture an infinite web stretched across space. At each knot sits a jewel. Each jewel reflects every other jewel. In each reflection you see the reflection of every other, and so on into infinity. The metaphor expresses interpenetration and non-separateness. Each part contains and reflects the whole. It's an ethical and phenomenological image, urging recognition that our actions ripple through a vast interdependent system. At this point, it's easy to conflate metaphor and model and to overclaim. The holographic principle and Indra's net both emphasize relationality, parts and wholes intertwined, but they operate in different registers. Physics gives precise, conditional, testable claims about entropy bounds, dualities, and computational equivalences. Indra's net is a contemplative image, meant to transform perception and conduct, treating them as identical risks to errors, overstating what physics demonstrates about spiritual oneness, and reducing spiritual metaphors to scientific slogans. A more fruitful stance is to let them illuminate one another without collapsing their difference. Holography shows that our intuitions about separateness can be challenged in formal ways. Information, entropy, and entanglement can reorganize how we think about space and locality. Indra's net gives us a lived invitation to let that relationality inform how we treat others. The physicist asks, what structures of correlation produce geometry? The contemplative asks, if I experience myself as a reflecting node, how do I act? Both questions have value. They answer different human needs. What practical implications follow? First, the science invites epistemic humility. If core features of spacetime may be emergent from more fundamental correlations, then common-sense notions of absolute separateness are provisional, that can nudge ethical reflection. When models emphasize relationality, individualistic frameworks become harder to justify as a sole basis for action. But science does not prescribe values. It only widens conceptual options that can form ethics. Second, Indra's net can function as an attention training image. Practicing the jewel net metaphor can reduce self-centeredness and cultivate responsiveness. Holding the image gently in mind can shift small, ordinary choices. How you speak, how you recycle attention, toward care for the web of beings around you. Third, the holographic story is a striking example of how constrained thinking changes possibilities. Black hole thermodynamics and information bounds force theorists to question long-held assumptions, and those challenges open new, surprising avenues. That intellectual humility is itself useful. Treat bold metaphors as invitations to explore, not as confirmation of spiritual dogma. Now, a short interconnection contemplation you can practice right away. This is a practical micro-habit inspired by Indra's net. It should take 5 to 10 minutes. Use it as a resetting device in the middle of your day. Find a comfortable seated position. Close your eyes if that feels okay, or soften your gaze. Take 3 slow, steady breaths. Inhale for 4 counts. Hold for 1. Exhale for 6. Allow the body to relax a little with each out breath. Now visualize a fine luminous net extending outward in all directions. See tiny points of light at each junction, little jewels. Choose one jewel to represent your present experience. The sensation in your chest, the breathing, the sense of being here now. Notice that jewel for a few breaths. Let it be just as it is, bright or dim, steady or flickering. Now picture that jewel reflecting a neighboring jewel. In that reflection, you see a tiny image of the other, and within that tiny image are further reflections. Allow this sense of mutual interpenetration to be present without forcing it into a belief. You're simply noticing a felt sense of connection. With each out-breath, imagine your attention extending along a thread to one neighboring jewel. It could represent a person you care about, a co-worker, place in the world, or a living system. Hold that image for 2 or 3 breaths. Notice any emotional tone that arises: warmth, distance, concern, or indifference. Observe it without self-judgment. After a few rounds, expand your awareness to include a larger circle of jewels. Sense how actions at one node affect others, like ripples in a net. If it's helpful, silently offer this intention: may my actions reflect awareness of our interconnection. Stay here for a few breaths. When you're ready, settle back into ordinary awareness. Open your eyes slowly and take a moment to notice whether your posture, tone, or impulse to act shifted even a little. This short practice is not a metaphysical proof. It's an ethical reorientation, a micro-habit for feeling relationality a bit more directly. Repeat it whenever you need a tone reset or before decisions that affect others. A few cautions before we close. Poetic metaphors can be seductive and misleading. It is tempting to flatten the distinction between mathematical dualities and spiritual oneness into a single proclamation. The universe is one. That overreach risks obscuring both the mathematical subtlety of modern physics and the depth of contemplative practice. Also beware of misusing the holographic idea as a new age catchphrase that claims you can will reality into being. Physics does not say that. Holography is a model-dependent structural property of particular theoretical frameworks, not an empowerment formula. If this line of thought stirred your curiosity, here are sensible next steps. For the physics, look up Bekenstein's early work on black hole entropy, Hawking's papers on radiation, Hooft and Susskind's discussions of the holographic bound, and Maldacena's 1997 paper introducing AD/CFT. Leonard Susskind's book, The Black Hole War, is an accessible narrative introduction. For Entanglement in Geometry, look for work by Mark van Ramsdonk and recent reviews on Emergent Spacetime. For the contemplative side, explore translations and scholarly commentaries on the Avatamsaka Sutra and Huayan thought, which develop the Indra's net imagery and its ethical implications. To sum up, the holographic program in physics and the metaphor of Indras net point us in a similar conceptual direction toward relationality, encoded interdependence, and a less atomistic understanding of reality. Physics offers precise, conditional models that can be tested and computed. Indra's net offers a lived invitation to change how we attend, relate, and act. Holding both perspectives together with curiosity and restraint can enrich our scientific imagination and deepen our ethical sensitivity. If you found this exploration meaningful, please subscribe to Beyond the Mind for more videos that weave ancient images with modern science, grounded in curiosity and care. Like the video if it expanded your sense of wonder, and tell us in the comments, when you tried the interconnection contemplation, which jewel did you reach for? A person, a place, or an idea? If you'd like a printable one-page practice sheet for the interconnection contemplation, or a brief guided audio version you can use daily. Write one-pager or a guided audio in the comments and I'll prepare it. Thank you for listening. Stay curious, stay humble, and stay connected. Until next time, welcome back to Beyond the Mind.